I just moved into a new house over the weekend. I paid the first month's rent. I signed a 1-year lease. The house was built in the 1930s. Although it's still livable, it has a lot of problems. The layout is strange. The porch isn't finished. Well, to be honest, the house is pretty run down. But I had to settle for it. When I saw the house online, I immediately dialed the number listed. I asked if I could see the house that day, or another day, that week. From the first conversation with the landlord, I got a really bad feeling about him. Not exactly creepy, but definitely annoying. We agreed to meet on Saturday. He would show me the house. But before that, he kept sending me several texts every day, constantly confirming, "Are you sure you're coming to see the house? I don't want to waste time." I reassured him many times that I live only 5 minutes away. I would definitely be there Saturday. I should mention, I was looking for a house for myself and my father, who is in a wheelchair. When we arrived, the landlord was standing in the yard with a big smile on his face. I waved hello to him. Then I went around to the passenger side to help my father out of the car and into his wheelchair. The landlord's face immediately turned into a frown. As we walked up to him, my dad reached out to shake his hand, but he just looked at me and said, "I thought it was just you," completely ignoring my dad. I awkwardly tried to explain, since he never asked. I hadn't mentioned it. Then he showed us the house. The house was old, but livable, so we paid the deposit. Everything seemed fine. We moved in over the weekend and paid the rent on the 6th. The landlord told me he needed to come in today to do some plumbing work. I said that was fine, but I had to work. I told him I'd leave the key on the door. I usually get off work around 12:30. Around 10, he texted me again, saying there was a safety concern. He wanted to confirm that I really wouldn't be home before 12:30. I said yes, I'd be home after 12:30, but actually, I got off work early that day. I was home by 11. I thought I'd just go in and say hi, let him know I was back, then stay outside so I wouldn't bother him working. Remember, I said the house's layout was weird, because the front door leads directly into my bedroom. There's another door on the left leading to the living room. The living room, which connects to the kitchen, back rooms, and bathroom. I turned the doorknob and found it unlocked. When I walked in, the first thing I saw was the landlord rushing out of my bedroom, through the living room, the room behind the kitchen, and out the back door. Then I saw his car speeding out of my driveway. I felt weird. I went back to my bedroom and found my underwear drawer open. Clothes scattered everywhere. My nightstand was open too. I don't know what to do now, because I can't move out right now. Due to my credit history, it's hard to find a place, not to mention one accessible for a wheelchair. I didn't expect my landlord to be so disgusting, but in reality, I still have to endure this for 12 months. Just thinking about it is terrifying. Here's an update. A lot has happened in the past few days, but I can't reveal too many details, because my lawyer advised me not to say too much. But I can tell you all that I took your advice and bought a night vision and motion sensor camera. It was very useful for me, because I caught my landlord coming to my house at 2 a.m., trying to look through my windows. We weren't there at the time. With this video evidence, my lawyer assured me that things would work in my favor. I am applying for disability support for my father. Several kind-hearted people in my area also offered me housing. I cannot put into words how grateful I am to all of you. Although the first encountered a terrible landlord, at the same time, I also met kind people like you. Thank you very much. Do you have a friend like this? Back in high school, it was always fun to be around them. But after graduation, you lost contact. Xiaolei was that kind of friend. After graduation, we never stayed in touch. Even at the 10-year reunion, We didn't hang out together. Then one day, I received a letter from Zhao Lei. I had no idea how he got my address. Because I had moved several times since graduation, it really surprised me to reconnect after so many years. And the content of the letter made me feel he had finally changed. The letter said, "Xiao Han, I want to go on a trip with you. When we were kids, we always talked about going to your grandpa's to fish and hunt, but we never really did it. The doctor said I don't have many birthdays left. I don't want to have regrets. My wife and I are packing our bags to fulfill the trip we always talked about. Would you like to join us?" My wife had no objection to it. Considering his health condition, I felt I should go. Honestly, if I refused, I would probably feel guilty for the rest of my life. The letter included his phone number, so I texted Xiao Lei, and we agreed to meet the next week. I was nervous, not sure if I was making the right choice, especially when we finally met at a service station outside of town. He drove up, the car filled with recording and hunting gear, dressed in full camouflage. His wife looked really excited. Despite Xiao Lei's health condition, he still smiled widely, his mouth unable to close, maybe because of chemotherapy. He had shaved his head bald. He jumped out of the car and hugged me. "Xiaoxi, see what I told you. I knew Xiao Han would come. He was strong. You couldn't tell he was fighting an illness." He asked why my wife didn't come. I said she had to work. And I continued. He said we should just make the most of the trip. I was glad that even after so long, there was no awkwardness between us. It felt like no time had passed at all. We were still two silly kids. And that felt nice. Xiao Lei wasn't very good at hunting, but we would still find something. I didn't want this trip to be a waste of time. As we entered the woods, Xiao Lei said it was a good thing we weren't hunting deer. I asked him what our prey was then. He just winked and said it would be a surprise. "Xiao Han, I'm so glad you came." While we were hiking, he said we had gone deep into the forest. Xiao Shi and Xiao Lei didn't speak for almost an hour. Then it started to rain. It was hard to spot any animals, so we rested under a tree. "Well, looks like the plan didn't go smoothly," Xiao Lei said. "What plan?" "We've already come this far, brother. Still not going to tell me what the surprise is?" "All right, fine," he said calmly. "Do not forget to look far away, to see when the storm will stop." At that moment, I heard a loud bang. I fell to the ground, covering my ears. I turned around and saw Xiao Lei. He had just fired a shot at his wife's head. Her entire face was blown off. She died quickly, without pain. Xiao Lei's actions shocked and terrified me. I almost screamed. I only have a few weeks left. I have been planning this for a while. "Actually, I brought you here for something else," he said, kicking his wife's body aside. Then he handed me the gun. There was one bullet left inside. "I don't want to go through chemotherapy again. I don't want to waste money on useless treatment. I don't want to suffer anymore. This is my final wish." I understood why he did this. I looked at the gun and at his wife's body. My mouth went dry. I wanted to run. He was sick. He surely couldn't catch me. But for some reason, I felt like maybe I should talk to him again. "Xiao Lei, why did you kill your wife?" I tried hard not to sound scared. I wanted to understand why he suddenly became a cold-blooded killer. Yes, she was the love of my life. But I couldn't accept her continuing life without me. That is why I had to end her life. I wouldn't allow her to abandon me and enjoy life alone. Xiao Lei said, showing a deranged expression. Then why did you choose me? If you do this, I will likely go to prison. Why do you want to punish me like this? Xiao Lei laughed. I know you think I'm useless. You've always thought that. I've done many bad things, and you were always the good child in everyone's eyes. It's time you paid the price. Because so many times when I got into trouble, you were there with me. But you were never blamed. Teachers, parents, they always thought you were just an innocent victim, he roared. What if I refuse? Did you ever think I could call the police right now? Director Song said, you can do that. But I've already thought about it. I could just kill you too, then die in this forest. I'm the one holding the gun, I said, and then he took off his camouflage jacket. I saw a bomb strapped to his waist. If you hit anywhere other than my head, this thing will explode. Or I could grab you, and we could both perish in the blaze together. Even though the weather was cold, I was drenched in sweat. I wanted to stick to my original plan to escape, but I knew if I did, he might detonate the bomb and kill me. I was trapped in this desolate place, with a madman beside me. Xiao Lei, I don't want to do this. I looked at the gun, then aimed it at him. I felt increasingly anxious. You've always hated me. This is where your darkest fantasy comes true. Do it now, he shouted. I was ready to shoot, but then I heard a noise to my left. 2 hunters emerged from the woods. They looked at us, confused and shocked. Xiao Lei thought he could scare them off quickly with the bomb, but I had another plan. I aimed the gun at the first hunter and shot him in the foot. He fell to the ground. The second hunter fired at me. I dodged it. The bullet hit Xiao Lei's shoulder. He fell to the ground, ready to kill us all with a bomb. I shouted for the 2 hunters to run. Taking advantage of this brief moment, I leaped toward the hunter I had injured. The explosion sent body parts flying everywhere. Blood poured down from the sky. I covered my face. When everything finally settled, nothing was left but a smoking pit. He left nothing behind. When we returned to the footpath, I told the hunters to hand me over to the U.S. police. They testified in court about what they knew. Fortunately, they knew I had been forced. That spared me from prison. Xiao Lei used to be my friend, but now he was dead. I couldn't help but feel that his final actions were purely to cause me more trouble. Hello everyone, I just remembered a story that happened 10 years ago. This story took place in my freshman year of high school. I was 13 years old, introverted by nature. I kept to myself because my mother was very strict. She didn't allow me to socialize outside school. However, I made a friend in my grade. He was a year older than me. He quickly became my best friend in the early days of high school. Let's call him Xiao Li. Although we were still young, I admired Xiao Li very much. He was confident. He seemed to have more life experience than I did. For me at that time, it was simply incomprehensible. He also drank alcohol. To me, those 2 things were both frightening and strangely appealing. Being with him made me feel like I could handle high school life easily and even do well. Xiao Li lived about half an hour's drive from the city in a remote suburb. For some strange reason, my mother finally agreed to let me attend a sleepover party, maybe because it was during school holidays. I remember it was a Friday or Saturday night. My parents might have been going out on a date too. I was very excited. Finally, I could go out and do something fun. Xiao Li told me that he also invited his other good friend, Xiao Ka. Xiao Ka somehow got hold of a bottle of vodka. The first half of the night was easy and fun. We drank, talked, and joked around in his room. I thought it was so cool. Because Xiao Li's mom knew we were drinking. They had a close and open relationship. Xiao Li's mom knew that teenagers would eventually want to try certain things. So she thought it best to do it under supervision and in a safe environment. However, later that night, things began to feel off. Because of the alcohol, we started getting a little loud. Although Xiao Li's mom was open-minded, she had to work early the next morning. So she asked us to move the little party to the backyard. Because their rooms were close by, the noise would be too loud. We all agreed. But when we got to the backyard, we quickly realized that Xiao Li and Xiao Ka didn't plan to just stay in the backyard. They wanted to go hang out at the nearby park. So we set off. The park was about a 5-minute walk from Xiao Li's house. I clearly remember there were no streetlights in that area. It was pitch dark everywhere. And because it wasn't a very wealthy area, there was already a strange, eerie atmosphere there. But I was still young, a little drunk, naive and innocent. So, I thought, swinging while drunk would feel pretty nice. We arrived at the park. We wandered around the playground. We stayed for about 10 to 15 minutes. I only remember a very uneasy feeling in my heart, as if something terrible was about to happen. We thought it was just us, but that wasn't the case. Less than 2 minutes later, I saw 2 figures stand up from a picnic table on the other side of the park. They started walking toward us. Keep in mind, it was very dark then, so I didn't know how long they had been sitting there. But since I hadn't noticed them arrive, they might have been there before us. They weren't in a hurry, just casually strolling toward us. I told Xiaoli and Xiao that someone was walking toward us, and suggested we head back to Xiaoli's house. At first, they didn't agree, but considering we were 13 years old, had been drinking, and were wandering in the park at midnight, we could get caught. They eventually agreed. We got back onto the sidewalk, and those 2 people followed us. They quickly closed the distance between us. The closer they got, the clearer I could see their outlines. They were 2 adult men. I told Xiaoli and Xiaoka that we were being followed, so we quickened our pace. And so did they. We were terrified. I could feel my intuition screaming warnings again. I tried to walk as fast as possible, without breaking into a run, afraid that if we ran, it would confirm the worst. That they really were chasing us. I heard a car coming up behind us. For a moment, I felt relieved. Because if someone saw us, they wouldn't dare do anything. I turned around, trying to get the car's attention. It was very close to me now, but that feeling of relief quickly turned into fear. Voices came from inside the car. There seemed to be several people inside. The voices were shouting at the 2 men behind us. Before I could react, those 2 men sprinted toward us. I started running, too, screaming hysterically for Xiaoli and Xiaoka to run. I was terrified. Fear sobered me instantly. The drunkenness vanished. The 2 men chased us closely. The car drove alongside us. The people inside were shouting something, but I can't remember what. I remember Xiaoli somehow caught up to me and ran to the side of a house. Xiaoka and I followed, climbing over the backyard fence. We jumped into the next yard. It turned out to be Xiaoli's house. We hid in the bushes, listening as they searched for us in the neighboring yard. They even broke some things. A few minutes later, I guessed they gave up. They all piled back into the car, and then we heard the car drive away. After that, I never dared go out at night again. Everyone, please be careful when going out at night. Stay alert.